Part 2. The image. The thing that defeated the scribes and Pharisees was the accidental creation of an image, or duplicate, of the Day of Judgment. Let me explain. On the Day of Judgment, judgment will take place before the throne of God. The law will be present, upheld by an advocate, and all the sinners will also be present, ready to be measured against this law. And in the judgment seat, not God, but the Son of God, he to whom all power, that is authority, has been given. The image. The court that was set up to judge the woman would, under normal circumstances, have been held in one of many places. However, on this occasion, in order to implement their trap on Jesus, they took the court to the temple, to where they knew that Jesus would be. But the temple is simply a microscopic version of God's house. So, without realizing what they'd done, the scribes and Pharisees had put the first part of this image in place. The next part of the image that would be put in place would be the scribes and Pharisees themselves. They are the official advocates of the law, and speak with all the authority of Moses himself. It is their duty to bring prosecutions to anyone who breaks that law. So now 2 more elements are in place. The law that was brought was the real law, and they were the real advocates of that law. The woman, the next element, is the sinner. No question of her guilt, as she was caught in the very act of adultery. She is therefore a real sinner. So everything involved in this image so far is real, absolutely real, howbeit in a tiny form when compared to the actual day of judgment. But in this, scale would not matter at all. The last element, the judge, would under normal circumstances have been a man from one of several offices, even up to the office of high priest. But even the high priest is only a man, and therefore a sinner just like the rest of us. And so the image that is partly formed at every trial is never actually made complete, the weak point being the judge. What made the image complete on this occasion was the fact that Jesus is the real judge. It is he, the Son of God, who will be in the judgment seat on the actual day of judgment. So when the scribes and Pharisees, as the official advocates of the law, demanded that Jesus judge the woman, he could not refuse. But this included him, the real judge, into the image. So now the image is 100% complete. This had never happened before or since. Once the image was formed, a branch of logic came into effect, and an empathy between the image and the actual day of judgment would have been automatic and instant. The 2 events became one and the same, with no distinction between the 2 in terms of time or place. This logic was understood by Jesus, who then used it to confound the Jews and catch them in their own trap. And at the same time, save the woman, and also leave an example of this logic where it could be found by future generations for those with ears that can hear it. So now, as long as the elements of this image remain together in the temple, those involved in the image will be under the irresistible power of the day of judgment. Another change that would have taken place would have been the identity of this man Jesus. Because in the image, it was Jesus of Nazareth that was in the judgment seat. But on the day of judgment, it will be the Son of God. Same person, but different identity and different powers. Jesus they could and did disregard, but the Son of God they could not. The proof of this is in the fact that when he gave his judgment, they all obeyed it, even to the point of walking away and leaving their prisoner behind. Now consider the judgment itself. The judgment that was given was ambiguous and made different sense depending on which of these identities we attribute it to. If we say it was Jesus speaking, then he is speaking directly to the scribes and Pharisees, to those who asked the question. And in his judgment is the notion that you are no better than her. You are all sinners just the same. And Jesus said, "He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her." And of course, none were without sin. But if we say it was the Son of God who was speaking, then he was speaking from one step further back. So what the Son of God said was aimed at the entire group, and he said, "He that is without sin among you, let him cast the first stone at her." But here the Son of God is making reference to himself. He that is without sin. But he is referring to himself in the third person, indicating that he is somehow remote from that event. If anyone else was to have sat as the judge at that trial, no image would have been created. The image that was created depended on one major element, the unusual identity of this man whom today we call Jesus. There are several other miracles in which can easily be seen the outline of another image. For instance, the turning of the water into wine and the raising of Lazarus. I'm not claiming that all miracles use the logic of the image, but some do. And central to the image in each case is one of the many identities or attributes of Jesus. When they demanded that Jesus judge the woman, he stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground, as though he heard them not. In the next section we look at an idea as to what he was writing.